Hello, welcome back to the next podcast of Andy Collier-talks cricket memorabilia. Today we're going to just talk a little bit about preservation of our items. Rob's not particularly well and his mother's not well, so I know he was going to do some, but he's not got the opportunity, so hopefully he's given me the okay to do this. So here we go. We're going to do a little bit on bats and postcards and things like that. Now, we're only obviously the custodians of what we own at the moment. Some of us sell on, some of us don't sell on, just keep collecting, but obviously the preservation of them is important. So the main thing really is to keep these things, anything at all, out of the sunlight, because that just fades everything completely. I've got a couple of, or an example here, which I don't quite know how it's happened. This St Peter bat here. The Yorkshire team on there is perfect. Underneath that was the England team. So why that would have faded, I don't know. And on the back of that is a Surrey team as well, with Sylvester Clarke in it and players like that. Roger Knight when he was captain. So I can only imagine that these Yorkshire signatures were put on a lot firmer than the England ones, which is quite strange. We'd have thought they'd have faded a bit separately, really, but. Anyway, the rubbers are always difficult to preserve because they just get general air around them and perish. But I know some people just wrap them up in towels and things like that. But say keeping it out of natural light is the main thing. This bat here from about 1928, the West Indies side on the front there. There's hundreds of signatures. I think I've counted up about 110 signatures on this bat from the 1920s. And again, there's some on the back there that are preserved quite nicely and some that have faded. So I'm assuming that might be a bit more porous area on the back perhaps, but that's a nice back there from 1928. Now photographs are another thing. It's always obviously the natural light again, I keep banging on about that, but this one here, this was George Street's copy from 1922-23 South Africa. And it's got a mount round it. You can see the mount round here, which keeps the image off of the glass. Now I've seen photographs taken out of glass which have touched the back of the glass and the image has come away with it, which you don't want to have. So obviously keeping them out of a damp atmosphere again, or over any heat. I know it's not easy for us to do a museum type environment in our homes, but that's one advice I can give you, is just to make sure you've got a mount in your photographs. Keep the image off the glass. There's another one here. Nice 1948 ship photograph. This one is the Orontes. Signatures are good on there, but Colin McCall, funny enough, has completely disappeared just there. So obviously that's he might have used a different pen, but again that's got a nice mount round it. Keeps the image off of the glass. So if that ever came out, they shouldn't have any problem with that. Signatures, autograph albums. This is my new one. Obviously, again, what you don't want to do is put these little babies in sunlight, really, if you can help it. Or if you've got a room that's got some windows in, draw all the curtains. But this has been done since 1928, and the signatures are perfect in them, so it's always been kept out the light in the drawer in the dry conditions. So if you're going to start fiddling around with autographs, it's a good idea to put some gloves on or something so the grease doesn't get from your hands to the signatures. But there's some in here as well that's in pencil, which are not quite as desirable, but because you can't beat a nice ink signature of these old fellas, or new ones to come to that. But we've got the 1928, some of the 1928 Australians there with Archie Jackson has signed it in pencil. But they don't fade. Pencil doesn't fade. Carbon and all that sort of stuff. But ink can be absorbed in all sorts of ways. From the back of the paper to the front of the paper. All depends how hard you sign it and all that sort of stuff. Bertie Oldfield had a fantastic signature. Always proud. Never fades. I've never seen a really faded Bertie Oldfield signature. There's another one here I've got in the collection, which is another autograph book, which is obviously kept in the cupboard. In here we've got Strudwick there. This is from 1930s again, still perfect condition. What else have we got on here? Morris tape there. Nice best wishes from Morris tape. And incidentally, this the writing the chap's done in these, not a mistake in it, and that's not faded either. So obviously the sunlight jobby is the key. There's a nice one of Jack Hobbs there. Again, not faded at all. Kept out the sunlight. It's obviously showing the ages of wear around the edges, but they can be repaired quite easily. So I've not touched this one since I've had it. And signature sheets. Obviously, many of us have got these folders with signatures in. So they're kept in a little your polythene A4 sheet to keep off the grease and stuff from your fingers. So you can just flick through those without any problem of contamination. So there's some nice signature sheets there. It's a nice. That's my Century of Centuries one, which I've fully completed now. That were alive at the time. I've got Viv Richards in Antigua. The last one I had to get. So that's firmly in a nice plastic case. So you can do that with photographs as well if you want. If you've got just ordinary photographs. Postcards again, I've got many of these. Put them in photograph albums. So these are all my some of my postcards here. There's Hopper Vet there, obviously in a nice pouch for the photograph. There's some rare postcards in here. There's the England ones there from Old Trafford as well there. So again, they're in a nice dry environment. I mean, this one, I've got this one so I can write down the side of it, which they are, but the problem with that is you keep adding to your postcards and you end up with them in the wrong places. But quite an interesting set of photographs there and postcards. Great way to collect is postcards. You can keep them in a small environment. So preservation is obviously a key thing for us to keep them in as good a condition as we can, so we can pass them on and obviously enjoy them in their present form. So not sure there's any other tips I can give. Is just keep them out of the sunlight basically, and then in a nice dry environment, not near too many radiators. If you've got windows in your specific area, draw the curtains. Not in too much of a damp atmosphere either. That doesn't do them any good. I know Australians don't have that problem, but we've got that problem over here. If it's on a solid wall or something like that and you hang a picture, the damp can come through. But you can get obviously damp proof backings to these photographs these days, which is a great help, but they never had that in the 20s and 30s. So you can get the foxing around on the back of a photograph, little damp patches over them. You see them at auction with damp patches on. But then you get the foxing in the photographs, which can be fixed, but that you can't do much about that because that's a little fungus in the paper. So if that starts happening, you can only get a restorer in to get rid of those if it's an important picture. I've got some with a bit of foxing on, which I'm not overly worried about because I seem to like the some of the foxing as long as it's not too damaging to it. But there's some all sorts of things. You might have some other ways of preserving your stuff. And we can see behind me I've got my statues and things, which is generally out of sunlight. They haven't done anything, but dust again, you can keep dust off them and give them a dust every now and again. But again, ideally they want to be in a display case, but unfortunately I haven't got that option. So that's I think the end of the podcast really. Give as much advice as I can, but so the big tip is to keep it all out of sunlight. So anyway, happy collecting, and I'll see you on the next one.